Hello there, I'm JP,
Hello there, I'm WH.
and we're back. Busy week this week. How do we find you, first of all?
Uh okay, it's Easter weekend here and
Plenty of Easter
well,
eggs?
not really, no. It's we're part of the Commonwealth, so we were talking about this earlier, like off air. We share a lot of same holidays
Mm,
here. So like I think pretty much what you call bank holidays, we call statutory holidays, stat holidays. And so like, Friday I worked and because we don't at the bookstore we don't really close except on Christmas. So,
yeah.
but when we work, those of us who work on stat days get time and a half, so that's always good. So I don't mind working stat days. Actually, I love working stat days.
Is Easter Sunday a stat day?
No, just Good Friday, and then today's a bank holiday and it's a school holiday, but it's not a statutory holiday.
Mm,
So government workers might probably aren't working, but if they did, they would get time and a half, and then
mm.
most things are open, like shopping malls and the such. So
Because I know that there is, like, over here, everything's closed on Easter Sunday. It's ridiculous. Like, everything across the board, there's nothing open. It's like supermarkets aren't
really,
open. There's like little, smaller, like what we like. Tesco is a big chain of supermarkets. And so we have like Tesco Metro, like little small ones, or Tesco Express. God, no, I get them confused. They've all got names. And there's
so
Tesco
are they
Extra
more
for
like convenience
reasons.
stores then?
They are, and you
Yeah.
can do those as much as anything. Or if you're going to order takeout, like we tend to have fast food places open. But like really, other than that, like everywhere's closed. But it's also full slap bang in the middle of Easter holidays. So it's always been like Easter is like, as a wrestling fan, is like it starts off with WrestleMania, and then you'd have Easter weekend where it just feels like a kind of like quite a weak like version of Christmas. Frankly, you've got a day off. There's a
Yeah.
religious component, like, but really, instead of giving gifts, you're just giving eggs. And because I'm like, there's loads of various kids of various ages between me and my girlfriend. It's like bloody hellfire. Like we can't move for the things. So like, I'm gonna have to. That's the only chocolate I'm gonna have on there. And it's, as we all know, the chocolate that they make the egg in is not. It's not like they're using dairy milk or like something classy, like, or whatever, like to have it done properly. It's like cheap chocolate filled in with like a very small version of the actual chocolate you like. And you think,
Well,
I paid £4 for
you
this.
gotta stick with the classics, Cadbury.
Oh yeah,
You
always.
gotta stick with the good brands like Cadbury, and that's the only eggs that I know. That
Uh,
anything else would be like you're rolling the dice with your stomach. I feel.
yeah, it can be. Well, the dog ate some earlier on today, some egg, some Easter egg that had been laid around, and then promptly sicked up their dinner, and then decided to try and hassle me for extra food. Just went, I can't give you anything now because
Mm.
you've been sick. But them's the breaks. But busy week.
Connor
Mm.
says is gonna catch up later on. Maybe he didn't watch anything, so maybe we should just spoil everything right now for him. No, just kidding.
Yes, spoil the absolute lot for him.
Like Darth Vader coming aboard the Mandalorian. What? Fuck.
We'll get into the kind of the greater Star Wars universe
Mm.
later on, won't we? Because I mean,
That
it's
was
a
that was that was
busy fucking
really
week.
a high point of my weekend was just seeing all the news and then watching on YouTube all the news of like coming
Mm.
out of Star Wars Celebration in London. I did not realize for a long time like that it was in London. So when I'm watching Martin Bushy's Twitter and he's like, "We're at Celebration. Me and Lisa are at Celebration." I'm like, "Fuck, I'm jealous. You guys went to Anaheim?" And no, they didn't go to Anaheim. It was in London. I'm like, "Fuck."
Yeah,
I would listen. If I knew this like a year ago, I would have probably have planned. I would have called you up, JP. I said, "Listen,
yeah.
regardless of like impending childbirth from your new son, let's just go to fucking Celebration in London."
Really gutted that I didn't for it as well. I'm completely yeah. Were you surprised when they originally announced they were going to be having it in London?
No, I do think because they've done it before. Have they done it before in London? I know they've done it in other
I think
countries
so.
before, but they've
Yes.
never done it in Canada. And you think if they come to Canada that Toronto would be the number one location that they would try doing it. So like I assume Canada is going to be on the list in
Yeah.
the future, but they did announce that it's returning to Tokyo in 2025, and I'm like, Hey JP, this is maybe the
Wow.
real reason to go on your long-awaited trip to Japan. But hey, you know what? If you go, if it's at the same time as this, you could maybe sneak in a cheeky Sakura Genesis in there.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. I could sneak like I like the use of the word cheeky there as well. I love that. But yeah, a cheeky Sakura Genesis. Probably there'll be something going on at Kurikan as well. I'll be able to do like
Korkin,
proper holiday.
we can watch some Joshi, and you can come back, report to like the likes of Alan Farrell that listen, there might be a lot of men in their between the ages of 30 and 50 in the audience, but it's okay. They're harmless.
He'd be all right. He'd be completely fine about that on there. But yeah, this week from like Star Wars perspective, not only like we have Star Wars Celebration, which we'll talk about afterwards, and we'll get into the trailers for Ahsoka and Visions as well. Big episode this week, wasn't it?
Yes.
Or let's just say it was a wacky episode as much as anything else. So this is chapter 22, Guns for Hire. Mate, like it's I want to jump to the bit where obviously I know you're going to kick off on this, but it was, I thought, as an episode, like I don't know, I've seen some divisive reaction to the ending for this one. I think there's divisive in a couple of ways, as we're going to get onto in terms of the people who they're casting within it. But on this one, we actually had a kind of quite nice Romeo and Juliet style subplot starting off, where we had a quarren ship, where we had a female captain, and I'm right in thinking it's the first. Is it the first female quarren that we've seen?
I think so, and I don't even remember seeing female Quarren in the Clone Wars. So in the Clone Wars, so you have to understand the Quarren and the Mon Calamari, which is the race of that Admiral Akbar is from. They both exist on a planet called Mon Cala, right? They're the two races that exist on Mon Cala, and usually they're warring with one another. So, during the Clone Wars, the Quarren align with Count Dooku and his separatists, and the Mon Cala want to stay with the Republic, and so it's kind of interesting to see. Okay, so there's a noble person, like a nobleman from the Mon Calamari side, who's in love with this female captain of this Quarren ship, which is, and I got a lot of this episode had a lot of different, like, I feel, influences on it. I feel this is very much a Star Trek opening. Yes, you would see in a episode of Star Trek. One of the various series, whether it's Next Generation or Enterprise, Voyager, whatever it is. I love the bit where she's in her tank on the bridge, and they feed her a martini glass of a little fish that she eats.
Yes,
that's so cool. Yeah, there's no explanation of why they present that in a martini glass or anything. I just thought it was cool. It's just like, that's really cool. And then when they get they're being followed by an Imperial ship, which we'll find out later is run by the Mandalorians. The tank slides down, and then she just sits in her captain's chair. Just like, that's so cool. And really, I was like, this episode is going to be amazing. But I would learn soon later on, like, not so amazing. But anyways,
and dries immediately. Like, that's the thing. Like, pretty much straight away from that. But like you said,
well, here's the thing: we don't know what kind of, like, they're in a galaxy. It's a different galaxy. What kind of minerals do they have? Materials do they have for the clothing and the chairs? And maybe it all dries really quickly. We don't know.
They can do everything else.
Yeah,
I'm pretty much assuming that self-drying clothing, the instant that there's no water in it, you would imagine that somebody would have come up with that. But they're encountered by, I think it's Imperials, but it's not Imperials. It's Axe Woves, the ex-Night Owl, who's actually flying the Imperial ship, stood behind him throughout all of this, going back onto wrestling. Cosca Reeves, played by Mercedes Bernardo, aka Mercedes Monet, aka Sasha Banks, in a just very much background role.
What good timing, because she just defended her IWGP Women's title at Sakura Genesis against Azumi and Hazuki, and came out on top and challenged by probably a dream match for her with Mayu Iwatani. So
if you're Rossi Agawa, you're using stills, of this episode and you're putting it entirely out there to try and sell tickets for that show on the 23rd of April. That's exactly the first thing that you'll do. You're going, Bushiroad's like, come on, it's in the Mandalorian, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
listen, the Mandalorian's popular over there.
yeah.
I was living in Japan still when season 1 came out, and I tell you, people I knew, both like other foreigners living there and my Japanese friends we just talk about the fucking Mandalorian. It's fucking massive over there.
Oh,
They love them some Baby Yoda, let me tell you.
Well, you get a few Baby Yoda moments in this, not perhaps in the way that we necessarily would have expected here, but it's quite funny actually because effectively Captain Chuggath, who's the Quarren leader, who they say, look, we know that you run off with a Mon Calamari prince, comes out, like says him an emotional goodbye. She kind of just goes, I can't give up all of this for a fling, like, and to which he's upset, as you wouldn't blame him as well for being. And on comes Mercedes Monet to take him away. Poor lad, isn't he? And
so it's kind of a bit of a Harold and Maude situation there, eh?
it is very much a Harold and Maude situation. Yeah.
Captain Chuggath, that's very Lovecraftian name, fitting for someone who looks like a Lovecraftian monster.
Well, yeah, exactly, and no one dies like Romeo and Juliet either. But it was like you say, very very Star Trek at the start of this. It was exactly what you would have expected. After that, we go over to Bo-Katan and Din Djarin, who have come to an independent planet. My God, do they ran this down the entire time? Like, very proud of their democracy to the point of like sheer arrogance. Like, all right, I get it. Yeah, it's a democracy. Plazir 15 to effectively speak to the Mandalorians, who they see on like the kind of outskirts. It's like all kind of glass domes. And instead, they get sort of pulled in through a traction beam and then basically forced to go on one of those ultra quick versions, like a mix between the glass elevator out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and any kind of airport monorail that you have to get on, just moving very, very quickly throughout. And they're on a high-speed rail, and they're told that they're going to be meeting the planetary democracy at this stage. And I don't know what your thoughts were. As in they go inside the lush banquet that they're having, we've got ex-Imperial Planning Officer Captain Bombardier, played by Jack Black, and seated beside planetary royalty, a Duchess, played by Lizzo. Yep. But they hire the Mandalorians to protect them because there's a charter in their constitution preventing ex-Imperials from having a military. So they seem very, very proud of. What did you make of this?
All right. Like, who the fuck was the casting agent for this fucking episode? Seriously, Jack Black and Lizzo. First of all, I don't know who the fuck Lizzo is. Apparently, she's a big recording artist. I don't know. Yes. I don't listen to modern music. I'll put that out right now. So I don't know who the fuck Lizzo is. All I know is that she's not a very good actress based on this episode. She looks like she's in fucking Star Wars, fucking Mandalorian on Disney Plus, but it looks like she should be like an acting level of fucking Lizzie McGuire. All right. So fuck, what the fuck? Because she's famous? Come on, hire people who are good, not famous. And this brings me to fucking Jack fucking Black. Okay, this guy is like one of the most fucking overrated, overused people in Hollywood. All he does is play a variation of himself. Okay, I don't care. It could be like, what was the movie? High Fidelity. Good movie, except for, and that's my first introduction to Jack Black. So I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's playing an obnoxious record store employee. I've met lots of those. He's very good at it. Then I see subsequent stuff of him in other roles. It's like, oh, he's just playing a variation of an obnoxious, guy. That's all he does. And this is no different, just a little bit dialed down. But I'm just like, oh, it's Jack Black playing a version of Jack Black. I cannot unsee Jack Black in this as his character. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I don't see Captain Bombardier and the Duchess of Plazir 15. I see his fucking Jack Black and fucking Lizzo, two like not very good actors playing roles that were like probably they were shoehorned into that could have lent their like if you had better actors who who weren't super famous already, you could have had a lot more gravitas to their characters. But as it is, they drag the whole scene down to comedy. I felt I was watching fucking the fucking Pantheon role scene from fucking Thor Ragnarok. No, not sorry, Love and Thunder, which I fucking hate. You know, this is up there with the terribleness of fucking Russell Crowe as Zeus in fucking Love and Thunder. This was cheesy. And then when the part where she says, "Oh, I want to hold Grogu," I bet that was in her fucking contract. I bet, okay, Lizzo, we want you in this episode. Can I hold Grogu? I want to hold Grogu. That's the only way I'll do it. I can forego my acting fee if I can hold Grogu. They probably did the flip into arms, and she's just holding the whole fucking time. It's terrible, honestly.
Right.
Like, I will say this overall, I like this episode. I like from this point the story that they go on. It's a little strange, bit of a strange episode, I feel, because it breaks the flow of what we've had in episodes previous to this. But I suppose it's like it's the calm before the storm, because we got the season finales coming up, right? So,
which, as we said last week, we're expecting kind of a 2-part for that one as well.
Yeah.
Karen says that. Hello, Karen. Now, obviously they've announced Celebration in Japan for 2025.
Karen, do you want to come with us? You, me, JP. We'll just hang out. Makahari Messe. I saw Noel Gallagher and his high flying birds there. It's the only time I've ever been to Makahari. Nice place. A lot of palm trees in that area.
Really?
Yes. I was like, wow, a lot of palm trees here. I think they implanted them from Hawaii or something like that. But nice shopping area. Get a bit of cheeky shopping get done. You know
I'd be up for that. Sounds absolutely lush.
All right. So yeah. Anyways, this casting. Otherwise, this episode I liked it. But this casting was fucking terrible. And I'm not one of these people that says you gotta, like, I don't know. Like, I know there's a lot of backlash against this, but probably because it was bad. It was so glaringly, egregiously bad about why they cast these two. Is like because they're famous, not because they're any good and would do the characters any justice, because they didn't. So anyways, but there are scenes in this on Plaza 15 that I thought were great. One of them reminded me of like Blade Runner. I'll get to it when you talk about it, JP.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of this. I mean, I laughed. And I don't know if that's necessarily the reaction you should have when you see Liz. I thought, is that Jack Black? Oh, it is. And I went, is that Lizzo? And I was watching my girlfriend. She went, yeah. And I said the same thing you did. I said, I bet she's here because she wants to hold baby Yoda. And that's the reason why this has all ended up. She's like cast them in that. I mean, I looked through IMDb. There really isn't anything on there. It's not like she is, as you kind of expect these days, as a recording artist, to actually have done a few films at this point. I don't think Lizzo really has. An episode of The Simpsons I saw. But yeah, it's the kind of thing that it just takes you out of what you're watching.
Yeah.
Because you're very aware you're watching novelty, celebrity casting. And Game of Thrones did this at points, Oh,
the Ed Sheeran?
Ed Sheeran in
Horrible.
there. And you just think, yeah, you're opening up that kind of worms there, aren't you, for that? But yeah, like say, I mean, in terms of the plot that they set in place, they say, you've got the idea of these battle droids that have been reprogrammed, yet some of them are subtly rebelling in there as well. And they want them to eliminate the droid problem because they're allowed to cover blasters, because as Mandalorians, they're seen as that's being part of your culture. So it allows them to do that. So, and then in return, they'll recognize Mandalore as a sovereign system once more, and they'll petition the New Republic for that to be the case.
So this whole like plot point is straight out of like Blade Runner. Like this idea that these droids that are going amok are like the replicants in Blade Runner, and essentially Bo-Katan and Din Djarin are Rick Deckard. They're Blade Runners. They're hunting down the droids. They're gonna hunt down these renegade droids and find out what the problem is. There's a lot of like if you read comic book and you're familiar with old school comics, there's a character out there called Magnus Robot Fighter who does the same thing. Like he lives in an Earth society way in the future where society is dependent on robots, and they become lazy and complacent and kind of, very what's the word? Self-indulgent. It's like the idea of what happens to humans in WALL-E, right? And also what happens in the Dune books in the pre the Paul Atreides, Muad'Dib saga is like this idea of what they call the Butlerian Jihad, which is an uprising against machines who have
Yeah.
enslaved humanity because they became too
Is
dependent
it
on
AI as well, generally?
in Dune.
Yes.
Yes,
The
it's an AI
Butlerian
that
Jihad.
it's kind of like I think that's where James Cameron gets the idea of Skynet is from the AI in the Dune prequel setting. And so like this is I feel something similar like but they also introduced in Star Wars this idea of the droid Grata like that is Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character in Solo where she's like droids are not slaves, we want an uprising, we want to be treated with respect and dignity and so like think there's that element that's in the back of my mind watching this. I'm thinking, oh, are we going to see the droid Grata and because when we see that scene in the trailer with the bar that we go to in this episode, I thought, oh my God, and I thought that would be related to Din Djarin's quest to find a new memory chip for IG-11 as well.
Which the next place they end up going to is they go to a command center where you've got like kind of an overseer who's played by Christopher Lloyd, who I actually think does like a very good job on this.
He's really good. He's good.
Christopher Lloyd's a proper actor.
He's an actor. There
yes.
You go. He didn't play a variation of fucking Doc Brown in this or the Klingon commander he plays it. I think it's a Search for Spock, I believe.
Yes.
So he's an actor who could do different roles and he played this differently. When we get to the end, I mean I thought his character arc in this episode was really well done.
I mean, because one of the things that he explains as well is that he shows them a series of videos, the last of which it feels like there's like a whole set of people slaughtered, like from the way it cuts away from what effectively looks like a sushi chef. Like,
it's like one of those cooking droids from like the Book of Boba Fett in Jabba's palace. Yeah.
Except it's just gone rogue on this as well. And they're showing the videos on it.
That would have been amazing if it just saw limbs flying all over the place. That'd be crazy.
I thought it would have resembled something like Starship Troopers because a lot of the incidents are quite comical in nature, aren't they? You kind of laugh them off. Like earlier on, you think actually that one could be have a serious kind of gravitas to it. He has a cut-off button, but he obviously the idea is that, like you mentioned earlier on, everyone's reliant on these droids as well. And he directs them to go and visit the Ugnaughts in the lower levels to get a list of the droids that are still causing issues for them to destroy on here. So we get the Ugnaughts back in, who aren't playing ball when Bo-Katan speaks to them, says that they're not malfunctioning, not having any of this. But Din Djarin uses the previous experience of Queel from season 1, portrayed by Nick Nolte, if I remember rightly.
The voice is done by Nick Nolte.
Yeah, the voice.
The body, the costume work is done by a woman actress who's really well known for, I think, Misty something. I forget her last name, but she's really well known for doing a lot of costume work and creature effects and suit work, what they call suit work, especially in Star Wars. So I think she was the pregnant frog lady in season 2.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great gig, frankly.
Oh yeah, like if you can, I don't want to sound the wrong way, but like if you're are certain proportions and can hey, we need people who can fit into these suits or into a droid, into man a droid, an R2 unit. There's work for you. Awesome.
I was gonna say, like Warwick Davis is always the one that immediately springs to mind as for that same reason. But yes, goes out to speak to the Ugnaughts, uses the fact that he's spoken to Queel, of which point that they decide that they're going to send the locations of where they seek, and then they go down to the loading docks. There's a ton of battle droids there, which I had a flashback to the amount of Lego my sons used to have of these particular battle droids, or the various incarnations and toys that I've bought them for. Just thought this bloody battle droid turns up everywhere, but it's very cheap to make, I'd imagine. And then speak to the droid foreman, and then they said that the entire line of loaders have been through safety checks. So Din Djarin just starts basically kicking them, taking them slightly offline, and then one of them retaliates, which then leads into a Zora Blade Runner
That's
style
right.
sprint through downtown Plaisir in there, and that's immediately where my mind went as well.
Me too.
Yeah,
Including the
when,
point where he guns the droid down. I was like,
yeah,
that's like Harrison Ford gunning that. Who plays Zora? It's Joanna. Is that Joanna Cassidy?
Joanna Cassidy. Yes.
Guns down Joanna Cassidy, and the only thing that would have made this better if the battle droid was like working in a strip bar, a droid strip bar.
But it had that sort of that Los Angeles 2019 like kind of like feel to it, with the it did without the sort of overt amounts of smoke as much as anything else, but the kind of neon nightlife. It kind of very much fit into that kind of aesthetic, which is absolutely fine. I'm sure Bryce Dallas Howard, who directed the episode, that would have been a film that she would have watched so many times. God, the amount of Dad must have made us sit through. You would simply imagine on there. But I thought this was great, like the chase through here.
I always like the return of Matthew Wood, who does the voice of the battle droids, and he does a lot of sound design actually over at Lucasfilm for like the shows. He's great as when he's doing the voice of the battle droids, and we have to like differentiate the. So he does the voice of the B1 battle droids, like the ones you see in the Phantom Menace predominantly, and then there's the B2 droids, that the ones that Din Djarin is kicking, these big bulky ones. We have to remember he's kicking them. Like you think you think, oh, he's turned the corner on droids. He doesn't hate them anymore. Because first episode of first season, he's like, I don't want a droid taxi. No droids. I don't want droids. I don't like droids. Because we learn he's PTSD about droids because battle droids killed his family. So he doesn't like droids in general. But like I can see him turning the corner on astromech droids, on like mouse droids, on gonk droids. Okay. But these fucking things, they kill his parents, like I can see him like just having like a lot of residual hatred for this style of battle droid, or any battle droids that were used by separatists during the Clone Wars. And so he just starts kicking them. And it was like, that to me was like, that's natural. Like he would
proper
do that.
Thumping him.
Yeah. But that to me is like, people think, like some people are saying, oh, that doesn't seem like he would do that anymore because he's, he doesn't hate droids anymore. He's bonded with IG-11. But an IG droid did not kill his parents. A battle droid killed his parents. So like him, like kicking one, getting any chance to kick one, I think he'll take it.
Oh yeah, definitely will do. And that all together adds to the fact that the next place they end up, what is it, on the droid, and they search them and they find a spark pad, and it's for a droid bar called the Resistor.
So a spark pad is a droid equivalent to what, a matchbox, I guess.
Yeah. It would be. I love that. I mean, it's just like kind of classic kind of, detective kind of like tropes from like incident happened, someone's died, what have they left on them? This is where they were, like, and then they'll go off without any queries from the authorities on there. They enter it, bar falls silent, which is cracking on there as well. What is it? You've got the bartender droid being interrogated by like by Bo-Katan, but then, like you mentioned, Din Djarin, not a fan, taking a more sort of brutal stance, sort of threatening to kind of rip him to pieces on here.
It goes all Jack Bauer on him,
Very much so. Whereas when you then hear the retaliation, you're really thinking, well, which one is the human here? Like, because the bartender explained basically that they want the help because this is a safe space for reprogrammed separatist droids, and otherwise in Republic worlds that they'd end up being scrapped, but they can live in peace here, and that effectively, that they do want to help because they just make them look bad, and they don't want to. They fear being replaced, which is that's the thing, they fear about humans, which I thought was actually like kind of like a quite nice little moment where you think, okay, will he be able to turn it around? Which then by the end of the episode, you can see who's actually behind it. But Barton says they're serving the Penth, which patches their programming as the mainframe commands change, but also apparently has pleasures the stimuli that they have as well. So yeah, they go in there, they find that they're all imbibed with the same batch. They go to a droid morgue, which I thought was tremendous. Like set up just like a regular morgue that we would expect for droids. and effectively they manage to isolate the subparticles, and then it sends the medical droid rogue, and Djarin has to use the dark saber in order to take it down, because it then becomes like a kind of level as they're shooting these green lasers across the room as well at the same time. But yeah, very much falling down in Chinatown in some ways, isn't it? Just call it
Yeah,
Droid Town instead.
it is very much like that idea. Like things happen here because it's Plaza 15. It's a society so dependent on droids that like what you would maybe not normally see on other Star Wars planets, you would see on this planet on Plaza 15 because it's so different. It's like going into another, like in Chinatown, like the movie Chinatown, like Jack Nicholson when his character goes into China, and people like, well, you can't expect to get what your methods work in other parts of where is it, Los Angeles, San Francisco, I
Los
forget.
Angeles.
Los
Yeah.
Angeles, like other parts of Los Angeles, your methods might work, but they're not necessarily going to work here in Chinatown, because this is Chinatown. There's the famous line, of course, it's like, forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown.
But it's, I think it's quite nice when you have these little, like, if you're doing one of these episodes where, you've got your little, you need like a kind of a plot just to, as a piece of mainstream entertainment. Like, I like the fact they're doing something like this, thinking which direction it was going to go in. They find out that the subparticles are nanodroids who have a chain droid to it, and their origins are Techno Union, and they've been brought to Blazir by a certain individual, which goes back to Commissioner Hellgate, which I suppose the clue was in the name, really, there. Christopher Lloyd, who turns out, which they then confront him. He then threatens to hit a failsafe button, which was going to obviously set all the battle droids back to their original settings, so slaughter everyone. And then effectively Bo-Katan gets him to monologue, to paraphrase The Incredibles on here, as he talks about his love of Count Dooku's separatist ideals, which I actually thought was really interesting in order to do that. By which point Bo-Katan just shoots him with a taser, and he's incapacitated.
This whole idea of, like, if you explore the separatists, right, their official title is the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and they don't want to be part of the Republic, because
basically NAFTA.
Yeah, like they're just like, well, the Republic is corrupt, the Senate is corrupt, they're ineffective, we don't get served by them. Why should we be part of this Republic that fails us all the time? And so there's like a two-parter, Heroes, I think it's called Heroes on Both Sides, which looks at like trying to, like, the Confederacy trying to make a peace treaty with the Republic, but of course, the person who doesn't want that to happen is Count Dooku, and of course, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, because they're the fucking Sith Lords who want this war to continue so they can solidify their power. So it's interesting because they make a great argument against the Republic, because the Republic, we have to remember, the Republic is actually corrupt. The Republic is a failure of a political system for this galaxy.
We saw it in the last episode, didn't we? We saw the failings of that bureaucracy. We saw the fact that, that there are very evident cracks there within the system as well. So the idea of why would they trust it? And, I think that was the thing about it, is, being able to kind of foreshadow where exactly the Republic is going to be going at that particular point in time. They bring Christopher Lloyd before Jack Black and Lizzo. A sentence I didn't expect to say at the start of when we recorded last week. Didn't think I'll be saying that next week. She exiles him to a moon. At the same time, the Duchess gives them both the key to Plazir and an audience with Axe Woves at stage. She also knights Grogu in a sequence that can only really be described as daft and unnecessary, really. Knights Grogu, which I'm sure, again, she just thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could knight Grogu? And I just went, yes, Lizzo. And then just let her do it, and then filmed it, and then put it out there for distribution in there. but that's because he's been helping her cheat in what is effectively some sort of fancy version of polo. She's been using his force abilities there at the same time.
I overall really like when Bryce Dallas Howard directs Mandalorian episodes or anything Star Wars. She does the best episode of Book of Boba Fett, which is the Mandalorian episode of Book of Boba Fett. But I would have hoped that she would have had I don't know, maybe she just like thought that was cute too. But I would rather someone just said, if that was the case, if Lizzo said, "Can we have these scenes where I get to play with Baby Yoda?" And then a director would just say, "No, just stick to the script, Lizzo. Stick to the script. We're not doing.
We're adults. This is serious business, serious grown-up business. Can we just make the telly?
You can have fun in Star Wars. I don't get me wrong. You can have your fun in Star Wars. I like when you put fun things in Star Wars. Like Ahmed Best coming back as Kellic Baron as a Jedi is a fun bit of casting. If we go to Andor, like fucking Andy Serkis showing up as a completely different character was amazing. That's some great. I don't even call it stunt casting because Andy Serkis is a great actor.
Yeah,
in his own right.
And that's the key thing is a lot of the times you can see the casting because it makes decisions at the same point. We're going to be talking about it. The idea of casting a lot of the voice actors as the in the live action versions is something that that Lucasfilm generally seem very keen on it. But there's always been an idea of like they've never looked for like star laden casting. Even going back to the Rise of the Skywalker, say that you could say that about Adam Driver necessarily, but for the most part, they're pretty good at avoiding all of that because I just think it takes you out of that world when you're watching it because you're not thinking of the Duchess, are you? And the Captain, you're thinking of Lizzo and Jack Black.
Yeah,
and that's not really what you want your audience to be doing. Maybe it's just me.
I mean, like it's one episode. I don't think it's going to ruin the entire season for me. Like some people might be going a little bit overboard with reaction. I'm just saying, like, you don't need to cast celebrities who can't act in these things. You can just get good working actors who would probably enjoy having the paycheck and probably do those characters a lot better service than some guy who just plays a fucking variation of himself. Even his fucking in his band, what's his fucking band called?
Tenacious D.
Tenacious D, which is, by the way, should be called Tenacious Shit because that's what they are. They're I've seen their act, like not live, thank God, but I'm just like, okay, so it's two guys, two schlubs with acoustic guitars singing comedy songs that, Mike. The level that they should be on is like number one on fucking Dr. Demento's like top 5 chart back in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like not on fucking My TV or anything like that. Like it's just variety, poor variety comedy. That's what Jack Black does. And I have no fucking patience for it. Like I think like when I was watching
I have a fondness for School of Rock, but I always
School of Rock. Okay. It's fun. Him in High Fidelity. It's fun, but then you realize, but his character School of Rock is the same character he plays in High Fidelity. It's the same character. Variation of it.
I think the same version in Tropic Thunder, which again I do enjoy, but that's within an
Nacho Libre. It's all the same fucking character. He's like Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell is not an actor, as far as I can tell. He's just a guy who plays a variation of himself. And I would almost make the same argument at one point for Jim Carrey, but Jim Carrey has gone out of his way to try to
Adam Sandler in fairness.
And Adam Sandler both, but they become Adam Sandler especially is to try to become an actor. But again, I wouldn't cast Adam Sandler in this role either because it'd be like it's too glaring. Of like you don't need to cast minor throwaway characters as with celebrities just to like, oh look, it's Jack Black and Lizzo. No, just put two fucking character actors in there. Make it good. Like, can you imagine if fucking Adam Sandler was an Andor as fucking, as Andy Serkis's character? No, that would be terrible.
Jesus Christ. I am trying to imagine that now. That'd be wild. Absolutely. On there. Instead, that's the last that we see of him in the episode because we go over to the Mandalorian base where Bo-Katan greets Woves, challenges him for the leadership. We have quite a nice fight between the two. he doesn't want to cede his position. There's a point which he nearly, like, you think he's got rid of choke, and instead manages to use his jetpack to fly up into the air. Then she grabs him down to submission, and he tells her he's down that she will never be the true leader, as she refuses even to take the dark saber from Din Djarin.
Hmm.
And as Woves tries to discount Djarin's Mandalorian status, he steps in, explains how Bo-Katan defeated the enemy that defeated him on Mandalore, and that the chain of succession, and the idea being that he lost the dark saber when he went on to Mandalore, when he was attacked by the one-eyed creature. At that point, when he was rescued, Bo-Katan effectively got the dark saber back. She was the victor in that battle in there. So this is a way of getting around her having to defeat him. How do you feel about this?
I mean, logically, it makes sense.
Yes.
I just thought the way it was presented to the other Mandalorians on Plaza 15 was didn't carry the emotional weight that I was hoping for her reclaiming the Darksaber. Like, I think if you had some kind of way of, like, like that Spider Dalek on fucking Mandalore who captured Din Djarin, like if he was somehow recording all of this stuff, and then like the battle is being recorded, and then Din Djarin found the recording and he just palmed it and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna keep this because he doesn't want the Darksaber. It's very clear he doesn't want it. He'd rather she have it because he knows that she is a better holder of it for what it represents. That if he somehow had a holo recording of this battle that he could show, listen, watch this, and then it's like, oh, she fucking defeats the guy who defeated him, who took the Darksaber from him, and she took it from the creature, and then she used it to kill him. Then they'd be like, oh shit, you are our true leader now because you won the Darksaber in combat and used it in combat to kill the person who defeated Din Djarin for it. Yes, but like this is otherwise this was too like too neat, and just like they all accepted it too quickly, too easily in my mind. I thought there would be more pushback. But I thought in this scene there's a lot of great little nuggets of dialogue in here, like between Bo-Katan and Axwo's, particularly where Axwo says he is not Mandalorian. He does not have Mandalorian blood because their sect of Mandalorians are descended from families and they all inherited their Mandalorian armor, right? Their Mandalorian armor is passed down generationally through their family, through their bloodlines. His Mandalorian armor was created for him because he is a foundling. And so like the Children of the Watch, a sect of the people who follow the way, they don't care about bloodlines. They're kind of a more democratic version of the Mandalorians, where they like, if we find you as an orphan, we'll take you in and you train our ways and you speak the creed and you follow the way, then you are Mandalorian, and you wear the armor. You never take it off. You are part of Mandalorian. We don't care where you're from. We don't care you're from Mandalore, from Concordia, from fucking Tatooine, whatever. You are a Mandalorian. Like they accept Grogu. He's not even human. They accept him as a Mandalorian into their culture because he follows the way, like in the sense of like Din Djarin claims him as, this is my foundling. I want him to be a Mandalorian. They accept it. Then the armorer says, yeah, cool. We don't care. He's not human. She's probably like, he wields the Force. Fuck. That's pretty good. We'll take him in.
And I think as well, we've spoken about like the kind of cross cultures at play here, like kind of two sects of the same religion that have split off. And she mentions about the idea of Mandalorians taking on other Mandalorians as well. I think like the scope and spectacle, like the idea of it just being like in a field in front of a few other Mandalorians, doesn't make it feel as kind of spectacular as it should be. But, I think, when you're thinking about this going into next week, we've got a double header. Well, effectively, I think it'll end up being a two-parter. We'll get back to Moff Gideon as well at the same time. I think this is just a way of, effectively having a kind of united Mandalorian force. How it's going to link in terms of the Beskar and whether or not Moff Gideon's release was being set up, for the Mandalorians, or if there's a Rogue One amongst them as well. That'll be an interesting thing to see. I just think maybe we need to call it on the celebrity casting as well.
Hopefully, that was it for the rest of this season.
Yeah, you'd think so. Just a shout out there in the chat to Alex there. He says, evening, gents. This weekend celebration has been wild. 3-year-olds wanted to watch Young Jedi Adventures trailers 3 times today. So, haven't seen that yet.
Oh, I haven't seen that one either. I'll have to check
I think our friend Martin, I don't know if he saw an episode of The Mandalorian early at this, whether they were doing screenings for this week's one.
I don't know if they showed any episodes. They could have. I know he saw a lot of trailers. I think he went to a lot of panels that showed a lot of, like, I think he saw the Acolyte trailer. I think he saw,
yes,
like he might have, if he went to the panel, he might have seen like the remixed Ahsoka trailer where they basically showed the face of Lars Mikkelsen as Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yeah,
which we only got the back of the head in the trailer we saw, the general public saw. But no, I didn't know they were doing something called the Young Jedi Adventures.
Well, there is a lot going on, because as we were speaking about at the start and leading neatly onto it, we have at where do you want to start with it? Really, a whole heap of announcements.
Maybe the big ones. I think the big ones are the movies, the new movies.
Yes, which is kind of fascinating, because what we have now is, it's a timeline that's very much in place of how the Star Wars universe is set. First one. And I think this is the one that really intrigues me. Directed by James Mangold on there, who's directing the new Indiana Jones film, which they had the trailer premiere there as well, didn't they? And directed Logan before Copland, which weirdly I was talking about when recording another podcast about Brian Pillman that he'd apparently auditioned for.
Yeah, and what movie was it? The Johnny Cash biography, Walk the Line. He directed that.
Walk the Line. My dad loved that.
It's a great film.
DVD, cracking show. But yeah, it's Dawn of the Jedi, which is the earlier stage of Star Wars. And he's talking about it being a biblical epic, about the emergence of the Force and the first Jedi. They're set 25,000 years before the events of the original movie trilogy as well. And, this is before Old Republic on there. There's how much like canon works into here as well. Is there anything? Are they playing completely from a clean slate on this?
There's comics that there's a series called Dawn of the Jedi, which I'm assuming is where they get the name of. I don't know if this is the name of the movie or this is the name of the era that they're naming.
I think it's the era.
The era. So it could be a different name in the long run. But, Dawn of the Jedi talks about, like, the comic book talks about the creation of the Jedi Order and the introduction of how the Sith come along. And, there's no Sith, no proper Jedi. I think in the Dawn of Jedi, they're called the Jedi. They're not the Jedi. They're called something, a variation. And then it just becomes, morphs into becoming the Jedi Order. And then there's like these aliens called the Rakan or something like that. And they introduce like the Sith into this or something like that. It's been a while since I read it, so I'd have to go refresh my memory. But that's not canon anymore. So this is a clean slate that James Mangold and Lucasfilm can do whatever they want in terms of introducing like the concepts of like how the Jedi Order, what they're calling the Prime Jedi, like the creation of the development of the Prime Jedi, how the Prime Jedi becomes the first Jedi in the history of the galaxy.
Maybe not a midichlorian in sight either.
Midichlorians are here to stay. They are. It's just how you use them. I don't think inherently they're a bad idea now. I just think you just don't use them in a cheesy way. And,
in terms of Young Jedi Adventures, Alex gets back to a show for preschoolers set in the High Republic era.
Oh, there you go.
Which is talk about covering all bases, like fair play. Lucas.
They're really into now, like manifesting the High Republic into their Disney Plus platform. So people don't know the High Republic is basically a publishing initiative for the last couple of years, like set books like that are set in this era that's I forget exactly when it is. It's way before the Skywalker saga. It's at a point where like the Republic is at its peak, its works, and the Jedi are thousands, tens of thousands of Jedi, you know, keeping peace and order in the galaxy, and these Jedi look very different from the Jedi that we see by the time of the rise of Palpatine in the Clone Wars. It'll be interesting to see how it's depicted live action. So they're doing this show, Young Jedi Adventures, but they're also doing the Acolyte, which is set in the same period.
Which I have to say, and I know you mentioned about the films, this is the thing that I think I'm arguably most pumped about as well for that. So that's coming in 2024. They're filming it in London at the moment, aren't they? And they've got, like you mentioned as well, there would have been like a very early trailer released, and it's set more as a, kind of, I don't know. It says crime drama whenever I read about it. It feels like it feels more like a detective story. As much as
apparently, I think her name's Leslie Headland. She's the creator of the show. She did a show called Russian Doll. Before.
Yes.
So she says, apparently she says, oh, this shows, imagine Frozen mixed with Kill Bill.
Yes.
Her description, the high concept, the elevator pitch, so to speak, of this show is Frozen meets Kill Bill set in Star Wars in the High Republic era. So I'm very curious about this show because, like, for one, the cast is like this, like she went all out for the cast. I mean, I think the big get for her was the guy from Squid Game. I forget his name now. I apologize.
Should I have a look up on here as well? Because I've seen him because his haircut isn't red.
Lee Jung-jae is in this, but then you have the other main character is Amandla Stenberg, who was from the Hunger Games, I think, and those two are apparently the big characters in this. But also Carrie-Anne Moss is in this. Daphne Keane, who was Laura from Logan, she's in this.
Oh yes.
So there's a lot of Jedi running around. Apparently, a lot of them were talking at Celebration about how happy they are, like that. My God, I'm going to be a Jedi in this Star Wars project. Amazing. So yeah, I think it's going to be exciting to see. Like, I think also they're making the point of not having things just set in the New Republic era, which is where the Mandalorian and Ahsoka are set, and Book of Boba Fett was set. That they're to avoid, I think, stepping on toes. They're trying to set at different eras, which is why I think Andor works so well, because it doesn't have to really follow any continuity of the Mandalorian. It just has to follow the continuity of Rogue One and leading up to A New Hope, and just not contradict anything that happened in the Clone Wars, basically.
Yeah. And I think, like, the fact that they've set out like a clearly defined, what we're talking 9 eras, from Dawn of the Jedi up to the New Jedi Order, of which, there is a film now announced in regards to that, which is it's focusing on Rey. 15 years after Rise of the Skywalker, where effectively it's a new Jedi Academy, isn't it? Effectively, and this is being directed by Shamin Obaid Chinoy in there as well. So, I mean, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. I know Alex mentions in the chat here that he cannot wait to see more of Jedi Master Rey Skywalker.
Oh, me too.
As much of a big fan of the sequel trilogy as much as Matty is of WWE, and that's a lot.
I would say, up until Rise of Skywalker for me. And then, but her in Rise of Skywalker is not bad. And anything bad about that movie is the bad writing that happens because of change of directors and changing of the script from Duel of the Fates to Rise of Skywalker. But
Canadian director as well.
She's Canadian. She's a journalist. She did a lot of documentaries. Particularly about, like, I believe, Indigenous women in Canada and the hardships they face. I imagine this was a big draw for Daisy Ridley.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure they probably gave her a nice check too to come back as Rey. Um, but she looks so happy when I saw clips and I've seen pictures of her at Celebration when they announced that, oh yeah, like they teased the crowd like who's gonna play this Jedi Master who's gonna rebuild the new Jedi Order. Well, she's here, and they bring her out. It's Daisy Ridley, and the crowd goes nuts. Obviously, I think it's great. I think she looks so happy. I think it's like something that maybe she feels like I can explore this character more. I don't have to worry about maybe some of the problems that existed in the sequel trilogy,
Hmm.
particularly at the end. And I love when like actors who were good in their roles in Star Wars come back and they want to take another stab at it, like Ewan McGregor
Yeah,
and Hayden Christensen. I
I
think
was going to say,
it's
yeah,
great for them, you know.
more of which in on we'll have with that. But I mean, in terms,
I think it's going to be great because I think I don't think we're going to see Oscar Isaac or John Boyega in this, but Kelly Marie Tran, I hope she comes back as Rose in
mhm.
some form or fashion. I imagine Chewbacca is going to be in it. Um, the guy who plays Chewbacca, Jonas Santuos, I think is his name.
Yes,
Tall Dane, I believe. He's a very tall Dane man or Nordic of some kind. He's going to play a Wookiee Jedi in the Acolyte, and I imagine he's coming back for Chewbacca. And I can imagine like, hey, we just want you to play. We're just going to pay you to pay you to be a Wookiee, wear Wookiee costumes. Okay, sure,
it's always iconic, isn't it? Like it
yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Um,
So, because Ray, you got to remember, Ray's ship is the Millennium Falcon. That's her ship now.
yeah,
And so, who's going to be her partner is Chewbacca. Chewbacca's going to her crewmate and their partners, and she's going to. I'm sure he's going to be sticking around. Like I think it'd be waste not to have Chewbacca in it. And then you imagine the return of BB-8 and probably R2D2 and C-3PO in some
yeah,
capacity as well. And I think go with a clean slate. If you have a new Jedi Order, you I do believe you need to have the return of the Sith in some
yes.
form or capacity, and stick with the rule of two. There's only two Sith: the Master and the Apprentice, and we'll see. Or if they do a different variation of that, like they change it up. That I'm looking forward to it. We'll see what it is. But there's that. I think of the three, and we'll get to the last one. This one is
Yes.
the one I'm most excited about, the new Jedi Order, because I really like Daisy Ridley. I like the
Mm.
character of Rey Skywalker. I really think it's time to explore post sequel trilogy
Yeah.
to this era that they're calling um, the new Jedi Order, which is a term that comes from the publishing side back in the 90s when there was no Star Wars anything in terms of films or TV shows. It was just the books and the comics. This was a big part of it, was the new Jedi Order. So I'm glad that they're using that title. I like that they're kind of bringing these titles from the comics and the publishing side, the new Jedi Order, the Dawn of the Jedi. So it's really cool for me as a longtime fan to see these kinds of things happening. And I guess we should talk about the last director that they announced
Yes.
was Dave Filoni, the
Hmm.
mastermind of the New Republic era, basically now, along with John Favreau, of course.
Did yes, and this is going to have focus again on the New Republic on there as well. I think it's more the fact that it's a Dave Filoni film, which makes you think, if for no other reason, it's going to be fascinating in terms of how he's going to tie in all of the various things. Because obviously,
So they say it's the culmination of the storylines that exist in Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka, of like this overarching threat, which I assume to be Grand Admiral Thrawn
Thrawn. Yeah,
and what is called the Imperial Remnant before it becomes the First Order in the sequel trilogy. Yeah, I don't think it means the end of the Mandalorian TV show at all. I just think they're going to wrap up the Thrawn trilogy, the Thrawn story, in this, and then just continue with John Favreau's just going to. Well, I still got a story to tell with the Mandalorian that doesn't have anything to do with this, and the fact that they're leading into a feature film, I think, means that they're really serious about committing money to and resources to telling this really big story that, if you think about it, starts off in Rebels and then
Mm.
is now moving into Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and into this feature. And so JP, it's time for you to start watching Rebels, my friend.
It really is now at this stage. Well, I mean, I think if that was never going to be the case, I think the Ahsoka trailer, which dropped, which is the biggest
Yeah.
of the trailers that's dropped. You know, the series that is coming out in August as well. I mean, I've gone back and seen it a good few times. Partly because I love the music for it. I love the scoring for it. I think they've got
Kevin Kiner, who has done all the scoring for Clone Wars, all the scoring for Rebels. He's basically Dave Filoni's guy.
Yeah.
He does the score for the Bad Batch, and he like the Bad Batch is like just music wise just amazing. So this is going to be a fantastic. I freaked out when I saw Ray Stevenson in there.
Yes.
Great actor. I love Ray Stevenson. And yeah, and just we got depictions of Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Harrison Dula, which I was not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, she's there. And with the return of Harrison Dula, I'm hoping we're going to see the Ghost as a ship again, and we're going to get Chopper back in, who's the droid, who's Hera's droid, who's one of the stars of Rebels as well. So it was interesting because last week we got Zeb Aurelius, the Lestat, who's a rebel, a New Republic pilot. So are we going to see him in Ahsoka too? Because this is the same timeline, and he is part of the Ghost crew, and they're going to go find Ezra, who's been cast. They have an actor cast as Ezra, so he's going to show up. So I imagine maybe they're bringing in CGI Zeb Aurelius back onto the coast as a part of the crew of the Ghost again in the future, along with Sabine and with Ahsoka and with Chopper and Hera as their captain. I think it's for fan of Rebels. This is fucking exciting because you saw Chopper, you saw Hera, you saw Sabine, you saw the fucking Phantom. We didn't see the Ghost, but we saw the Phantom, which is like a shuttle ship that's part of the Ghost. And yeah, I'm so excited. It's so great.
I had Connor in the DM saying you're gonna need to get watching Rebels. That was the first thing after he saw the Ahsoka trailer. I mean, I think the tone of it feels very what you might think of as classic.
There are so many great emotional beats in especially season 2. I don't want to spoil it, but like season 2, it just punches you in the gut. Some of the emotional scenes in the end of that, and like just some of the things that Dave Filoni is able to do in Rebels, like that he couldn't do in Clone Wars, but he could do in Rebels because of the timeline it's set. Like you will see the conclusion of the story arc of a character he brings back into Clone Wars, and then he continues to use. I'm not going to say who it is. He continues to use in Rebels, and it's amazing. And it's just utterly a masterpiece. 4 seasons of just masterful storytelling. Honestly, you know, as someone who maybe likes Tom Baker's Doctor Who, Tom Baker does a voice of a character in Rebels. Oh, can we also say the return of David Tennant as the Jedi droid in Ahsoka, which I'm like, fuck yeah, David Tennant's coming back to do. I think his name is Hunyan. I think.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I fuck. It's gonna be great.
Lars Mikkelsen.
Okay, we should talk about that. Lars Mikkelsen, who is the voice of Grand Admiral Thrawn in Rebels, is been confirmed to play, and that audience, when they announced that audience went nuts. They were just like, because that's what everyone wanted to see. They don't want anyone else to play him. They want Lars Mikkelsen because he does such a great job for the voice. He also looks like he could be fucking Grand Admiral Thrawn too. So
yeah, it's one of the things where, again, we've spoken about casting when talking about the Mandalorian this week. It's at that point where you cast the person who's right, not the person. You don't think about, because it's a Star Wars property, you don't need to think of this in terms of, well, we need to cast a big star, otherwise no one's going to watch it. It's like, that's not really the case. You don't need to do, you have the Star Wars brand.
The brand is a star. Like Pedro Pascal was not like before Mandalorian. His career can be looked at like he had an amazing career before Mandalorian.
Yes, he did.
His level of fame and popularity you can mark before Mandalorian and after Mandalorian. And then Last of Us just cemented him in his upper tier of actors who who are in demand and are celebrities. But
Oh yeah,
but like, they purposely did not cast someone who was super famous to be Din Djarin. They cast a good actor that they thought he's gonna do service to this character, and he's willing to keep the helmet on for the most part, right? So
yeah,
I think you have that's the kind of situation where, but the brand is what makes Star Wars popular. You could just slap Star Wars a fucking ice cream truck and people fucking watch it, right? So
just a point here from Alex. He says so much of Star Wars now is effectively just Dave Filoni's fan fiction. I honestly couldn't be happier about that. I think
Dave Filoni is like if you and I were in charge of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Basically, he thinks the way I think the most ardent, like how people think about Star Wars is how Dave Filoni. I always maintain he should have done the sequel trilogy. He should have written the sequel trilogy, not J.J. Abrams. He would have done a much better job of it. He would have tied everything in nicely. Also, he has in his back pocket the secret weapon of Pablo Hidalgo, who is the continuity master of Star Wars at Lucasfilm. And he's like, they're tight. He is involved so much with a lot of what Dave Filoni does for Star Wars. It's like they go, Pablo, what happens? Is this planet in the outer rim or the mid rim? Oh, it's in the core world. Oh, sorry, shit. Pablo Hidalgo knows all this shit. He knows what species likes to eat fucking, eggs on a Sunday for breakfast. And, he knows all this stuff. Like, so Dave knows all this stuff, but also Pablo Hidalgo is right there to help Dave, like, come up with all this shit for Star Wars. That's all this good shit that's good for Star Wars.
But they've got the best of intentions there. So you always think they're going to think that extra bit more. There's not a point where they're going to.
Dave is considered the heir to Lucas, right?
Yes, he is.
He is considered George Lucas's protege. No one else is considered the protege of George Lucas. Everyone says, who is George's successor in terms of content creation for Star Wars? It's Dave Filoni, because he was hired by George to work on Clone Wars from animation. He was then like put in charge of Star Wars animation by George Lucas, and he was like, this is what I want to do. You're going to realize it for me for the Clone Wars. And then you want to do Rebels? Let's do Rebels. Okay. And so like, and the fact that Kathleen Kennedy kept him on as an integral part of the animation side of Star Wars post Disney purchase. And then and then she put him with Favreau to realize the Mandalorian. And then Favreau is just like, my God, what an asset I have with Dave Filoni here. And then everyone likes Dave Filoni. I don't think you'll find anyone saying a bad thing about who's worked with Dave Filoni, saying anything bad. That he's a very generous collaborator, and his knowledge of Star Wars is so vast and so deep, but also he's very generous of like how he works with other people, like especially actors. That actors love working with Dave Filoni, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that coming out of press interviews with like Rosario Dawson and the such. Is just saying, oh, Dave's amazing. I love working with Dave.
Well, he's directed multiple episodes of Ahsoka on there.
A lot of good. And he did the Jedi episode of The Mandalorian season 2, the introduction of Ahsoka into live action. That's an amazing episode. Like if you see his influence, his Kurosawa influences, like how he uses them in a Star Wars setting, it's amazing, so.
Transition of being an animated director, an animation director into directing live action as well. That's no mean feat.
No,
that's not an easy thing to do. In terms of the other directors who are on there, they've got Steph Green from Book of Boba Fett, Geeta Patel on there as well. I think Rosario Dawson. I don't know, like being kind of possibly directing an episode on this. Rick Famuyiwa. That's it. It is back directing an episode. And then they've got Peter Ramsey from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Jennifer Getzinger from Mad Men as well. So, like, this is the other thing I like. And this is, Marvel have been good about this. Is the idea of looking for fresh directorial talent or getting people kind of in-house who effectively know the house style they can do. Because I think this was something that was always thrown after the initial purchase in terms of something that they were going for in terms of much more not taking risks from a directorial perspective or looking for new talent is probably the best way.
I think the biggest risks they took pre Disney Plus is Ryan Johnson
Mm,
on The Last Jedi, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought what he delivered was brilliant. I'm of the camp that Last Jedi is brilliant. I'm of the camp that Ryan Johnson fucking made a great Star Wars film.
yeah.
I think, and I don't like saying this because I like J.J. Abrams. Like he has made like some of my favorite TV shows, and I love his Mission Impossible film.
Mm,
But like, and I for the most part I like the Force Awakens. For the most part, I like the Force Awakens. There's some parts that could tweak here and there, but for the most part, I love that film as well. I mean, Rise of Skywalker is just, I think, just an unfortunate circumstance of like they got rid of Colin Trevorrow, who was supposed to direct it, who was supposed to write it, and they just
yeah.
said, "No, we don't want to do this script." And I've read that script. The supposedly that's his leaks. He's never denied that it's his script that was leaked. He supposedly is the one who leaked it onto online. But I read that script, and that's so that they did that script, it would have been so much better than Rise of Skywalker. I like, so I think that's a good route to go, is to get up and coming directors to do this.
Yeah.
You don't need to hire like J.J. Abrams. You don't need to hire, I don't know, like what's a name out there? Like you don't need to hire Quentin Tarantino to make a Star Wars film or anyone like that. You just get these people who come from television, come from like, okay, you directed lots of episodes of this amazing television on the BBC or
Yes.
ITV or whatever, or on HBO. We want you to come into our world and just deliver from our stories, and just have someone overseeing everything, like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, just overseeing what's going, like, so it's all can fit in, and just, okay, nothing's gonna be breaking. I see the shadow of your door keep opening.
It is. Bless him. The donga's been sick today as well, but he's going backwards and forwards. And anytime I lean over and close the door, he'll do that as well. He's as pumped about all of this as we are. I mean, I think that's pretty much the major announcements, isn't it? I mean, there was a trailer I saw for. I want to mention the Visions.
Excited. That looks fun.
Season 2 trailer looks really, really fun. Aardman Animation being on there as well, but I mean, obviously, this is like an amalgam of various different kind of animation studios. Studio Ghibli are in there doing one as well. I mean, this is like it looked phenomenal in terms of like just sheer scope as well.
Well, the other things was the Jude Law show, Skeleton Crew, which is aimed, I think, at younger viewers as well. So that's I'll watch it still probably. And then they announced another season of Tales of the Jedi. So probably maybe another set of Jedi that's not Ahsoka and Count Dooku. We'll get, I don't know, the lost adventures of Alia Sakura and Plo Koon would be cool, or a day in the life of Kit Fisto. Who knows?
Oh God, yeah. Good old Plo Koon. I've got a nightmare about my son had him as a toy, as a Lego toy when he was very little, and dropped it into a sand pit at a playground. And I spent an inordinate amount of time searching as he was crying because he wanted it back. And I was just like, so I slightly resented watching him on Clone Wars at a particular point in time. I was just like, you've caused me grief, even though your character will never be aware of this. But it's for any parent who's ever had like Lego, there is always these problems, particularly Star Wars Lego, particularly because of the cost. And if you're losing like any particular character, you're like, God, had to order little sticker bits to get to turn stormtroopers into Captain Rex as well. Going back to wonderful days of parenthood there. Well, I look forward to doing it all again very soon.
Yeah, you're looking forward to doing it all again with the new one coming along.
Yeah, but that takes us to the end, I think, of this week's episode. I mean, it was phenomenal stuff there. We look forward, obviously, next week, because we'll feel like we're going into the home stretch, and the season finale as well. Whether or not there's anything else that comes out in terms of any of the like teaser trailer for the Acolyte or anything else, if any of that drops, it'd be interesting. I know they were talking about Andor season 2 as well, which they're halfway through filming at the moment. I think they started that in November, and they're looking to kind of go for a little while on that. So,
just quick note, like, I popped big when I saw Genevieve O'Reilly in the Ahsoka trailer. So she's going to be in in appearing in that show in some form. Hopefully with
Phenomenal.
a nice speaking role, hopefully, to tide us over until she goes back to a younger version of herself in Andor.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I mean, she's getting work. All I'd say is Lucasfilm has, Genevieve O'Reilly has been a very productive partnership for both of them on that
Yes.
front. But that brings us to the end of things for this week. Have you got any plugs?
No, nothing coming out this week. I'm sure some stuff will come out in the next couple of weeks before the end of the month.
Yes.
I'll let you know then. Yeah, but maybe we'll discuss
Thanks,
what we're
Alex.
gonna do. What we're gonna do post Mandalorian season 3. Maybe we'll, if you want, maybe this would be your incentive
Rebels.
to get Rebels. We'll do 4 seasons of Rebels episode a week review of that. I think it'd be nice, yeah, because when's Ahsoka in August?
Ahsoka's August. Yeah,
I think we could probably finish off 4 seasons by then. I don't know. But
it'd be a bit of a task
when
the baby's there, but I reckon we can get through a
30
load
minutes.
of Star Wars Rebels,
Mate,
which
30
I think
minutes.
is going to be a wonderful primer. Yeah, exactly. 30. Yeah, it'd be a wonderful primer as well for leading into Ahsoka. It's kind of ideal for that. So, yeah, definitely watch this space. In terms of the plugs I've got, I'm Grapple Spotlight this week. Well, no doubt we're talking all things AEW, Wembley, if anything else has happened in that time, as well as patreon.com/grapple, where we're recording about Loose Cannon Brian Pillman, who, when you go back and watch that stuff, my God, he was mental. Like that ECW stuff is fucking wild.
He is ahead of his time, Brian Pillman.
It's like Sheila Buff watched him and went, I'm going to do that in acting. That's more or less how I viewed him. It's like, which feels like I'm really condemning Brian Pillman with that comparison. But it's like an actor's gone buck wild as soon as he's gone like off Broadway or something like that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to that. And my big what if with Pillman has always been, what if the car accident never happened and he was healthy? My God, he would have like taken over the business. I feel like he would have been as big a star as Steve Austin.
We discussed that, and we also feel as well that their careers might well have ended at the same time, given their physical kind of issues that they had as well at the same time. That it would have ended around that. But yeah, that's going to be editing and getting that up by tomorrow. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. So all we've got to say is bye there.
Bye there.